Well, hello and welcome to Knife Delights. It's time for another Two for Tuesday. Yes, an easy open tag. I invite all channels to participate, grab a couple of knives, and talk about them. I want to thank all of those channels out there that have been participating in this open tag. It's sure been a lot of fun watching your Two for Tuesday videos. Anyway, what I thought I'd do today was try to compare the Buck 303 Cadet with a medium Stockman pattern from Case, and it's kind of difficult to do because it's hard to do a head-to-head matchup. They're a little bit different. This is a 18 pattern, so actually for size wise, this pattern here, which is the 44 pattern, matches up in size a little better. But the problem is the third blade on this is a pen blade and not a spade blade. So I thought I should show a pattern that had a spade blade with it too. So that's why I'm using the 18, even though it is slightly larger than the 303 Cadet. But this is kind of like a Ford versus Chevy type argument. I'll try not to show my buck bias here. Case knife lovers are going to extol all the virtues of the Case Stockman, and the Buck fanboys like me, we're going to extol the virtues of the 303. So keep that in mind. Have fun in the comments. I'm looking forward to seeing the comments on this Case versus Buck. Okay, so again, this is an 18 pattern, and this is the 303. Now this happens to be from the Ictus series. And the full pattern is the 4318. So the 4 just means synthetic. That's a synthetic polymer in the smooth blue ice. And the 3 simply stands for 3 blades. And then the 18 pattern itself. And then, of course, this is the model 303 Cadet by Buck. So overall length for the Cadet here, we have 5.75 inches. And for the Case here, we have 6.125 inches. So you see it is just a little bit larger of a knife. The blade length, and they just, when I get this off of websites on Stockman's, when they give a blade length, they're just talking about the main blade, the clip point here. So on the Case, the overall, or the blade length is 2.625 inches. And on the Buck, it's 5.75 inches. So on the Case, you do have a longer blade. However, you can see there's a lot of difference there in the style of the clip point. This being a nice long, slender clip, and this one here is just a little bit fatter. We look for swedges, and neither blade seems to have a swedge to it. So that's your main blade, your clip point blade. For a cutting edge, let's see, we had listed for a cutting edge on this one was 2.375 inches. I did not see a cutting edge listed for the 303, so we'll just check it out real quick. And the cutting edge seems to be about 2 1/8 or 2 1/4, 2 1/8 probably, close to that. So you have just a little bit more of a cutting edge on this one. Okay, for blade thickness, again, we're talking about the main blade here. On the Case, you have 0.08 inches, and on the Buck, you have 0.07 inches. So just almost identical in thickness. Now for the steel, with Case, they talk about, they call it their surgical steel or stainless steel. We don't know exactly what it is. But on the Buck 303, it is the standard. On this model here is the standard 420 HC with the Boss heat treatment. I should back up for just a moment and say that both of these knives are made in the USA, and they both have excellent warranties. I'm familiar with Buck's warranty program, their forever warranty. I've not used the case warranty service yet, so I don't have any experience with them, but I know Buck does a pretty good job with theirs. Now, when we get to handle materials on the standard 303, you have what Buck refers to as Velox. It's similar to Delrin, I believe. It's a polymer, and you can see it is saw cut. And this is why it's hard to do a, head-to-head matchup, because the case Stockmans come in a variety of inlays. Again, this one is a synthetic or a polymer in the smooth blue ice. I've been trying to do comparisons of knives that are still available, and I thought the 303 Cadet was still available, but apparently Buck has stopped making the 303, and some of the online knife stores I checked, and they all list the 303 as being out of stock. I do know I see them on eBay and other websites, auction sites quite a bit, so you can still pick one up. If you're looking for a smaller or a medium Stockman by Buck, you have to get one of their overseas made models. It almost looks to me like the only USA made slip joint that Buck's making now is perhaps the 301 Stockman, which is kind of a shame. Now let's check out some of the other blades here. And of course, on this pattern of case Stockman, you can see that sheep's foot protrudes way up, sticks way up, so you can get to it there. And that's what the sheep's foot looks like on there. Whoops. And this is the sheep's foot on the Cadet. Now, Buck, and I've talked about this before, Buck went to 3 springs so that each blade has its own spring. And when they did that, as you will see, on your typical or traditional Stockman, the clip blade and the sheep's foot pivot out of the same end because they only have 2 springs to it. Buck added the 3rd spring again, and they reversed the sheep's foot so that the sheep's foot folds out opposite of the clip blade. Now, I know RJ has shown a case Stockman, and I don't know what pattern it was, but it actually had 3 back springs to it, if I remember correctly. But what that did for Buck then is you have your sheep's foot sandwiched in between the other 2 springs, and according to Buck, the sheep's foot was the most widely used or most used blade on most Stockmans, so they thought they'd give it its own spring and let it come out that way. And another advantage to that is, as you can see, there's no cant to it. So this is, a 90-degree angle. So when you're doing scoring cuts, you got a straight angle there. When you only have 2 springs on a Stockman, you can see they have to bend that blade over just a little bit to get it to fit down in there. So you almost, if you're making a pull cut, you almost have to adjust for that cant just a little bit. So that is one advantage of the Buck over the case, I believe. All right, and then we will go to the spade blade. And we'll just check them out, see what they look like. Again, these blades are going to be just a little bit larger on the case because, it is a slightly larger frame. But that's the difference in your sheep's foot. I'm sorry, in your spade blade. They look like there. Yeah. Now, as far as grind, this one's from 1995, so this is back when Buck was still doing flat grind. on their newer knives, and I don't remember when they switched. I want to say it was in the late 90s, but they did switch to a hollow grind. Of course, this is a 303 with the rosewood. So that's if you buy a more modern or more recently produced 303, you're going to get a hollow grind like that. They don't make these anymore either, unfortunately. So as you can see on the case here, we've got a flat grind. Now, one unfortunate thing about only having the two back springs is on several of my case Stockmans, I don't have a lot of them, but you do end up with some blade rub. And again, that's because they're having to cant that over to try to make it fit down in there. And that's just part of the deal. It's something you just got to deal with. I was very upset when I got my first case Stockman and I saw that blade rub on it, and I was all upset. But you know what? It doesn't affect the performance of the knife, and it's just something you got to learn to deal with. Now, as you can see here, this one's constructed with a brass liner down the middle. And on the buck, there is no middle liner. I believe both of these are nickel silver bolsters. And you have one nickel silver pin there, stainless steel pin. And that's what the pins look like on there. I think those are brass. It's hard to tell in the bright light. I think those are brass pins. So, as with a lot of knives, sometimes you have brand loyalty and you're willing to overlook some things. I do have to say, overall, the Buck 301s and the 303s sometimes do not have the best walk and talk to them. That's, fairly good there. That's fairly good there. And that's light. And it seems like it's the sheep's foot blade on the Buck Stockmans that have the weakest spring to it, or the worst walk and talk, if you will. And we'll just check out the case here. Seems to have much better snap to it. So, there you have it, just a quick peek at these two wonderful patterns. If you like Stockmans, hey, you can't go wrong with either one. Unfortunately, again, these are not being produced anymore, so you have to buy them on the secondary market. And as far as this pattern here, there's all kinds of case knives, or with different handle material in this pattern. So yeah, I just don't think you can go wrong with either one. I think they will both suit your purpose. My little bit of bias is with this black Velox and the way they have the springs, the 3 springs on it. This just seems like more of a work knife, and this seems more like a gentleman's carry on Sunday morning or something. But that's just me. Well, I sure hope you've enjoyed this. Down here in the bottom right hand corner, I'll put a link to my playlist. Down here in the center, that big round knife delight, so I hit that if you'd like to subscribe. And down in the lower left hand corner, well, that's just the next video that YouTube thinks you should watch. So until next time, have a very delightful day.